I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I record this podcast. I am on Yagarbal country, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I also extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples listening today. Hi, Smart Community friends. In this episode of the Smart Community podcast, I have a fantastic chat with Zhao. Jack is a designer and maker of data visualizations with over 15 years experience in research and industry. He co-founded Small Multiples with his partner, Andrea Lau, where they help clients across all industries and sectors make data useful. Their recent focus has been on environment and sustainability projects, recognizing the urgent need for attention in this space, given the ongoing climate crisis. As always, we hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it.
Welcome to the Smart Community, Smart Regions, Smart Towns, and Smart Cities. It's where we live, work, and play. With smart communities, the future starts today. Big data, smart mobility, emerging trends galore. The Smart Community Podcast is what you're looking for.
Hello, Jack. How are you today?
Hi, Zoe. Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. Let's just jump straight in. And can you please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and your current work?
All right. So my name is Zhao. I'm a designer and maker of data visualization. So I've been in this field for over 15 years, doing research and working in the industry. And from the majority of that time, I've been working through a company called Small Multiples, which I co-founded with Andrea Lau. And yeah, we are still actively making data visualization to this day. 15 years later, still enjoying it. So at Small Multiples, we help clients use data, make data useful. So we work across all industries, so in both and private sectors. But lately, our focus has been the environment and sustainability, which we feel is an area in urgent need of attention. So, given the dire situation around the world that we see every day on the news, so I guess to best demonstrate what we do, I can talk about a recent example that we've been working on, a project that we've been on for a environmental consultancy called RecycleMate. So they are called RecycleMate. So we were trying to make very detailed waste classification and collection information accessible to councils around the country. As you know, being in a consumer society, we're constantly buying things, they're little gadgets, and they break and we throw them away. And things are so complicated these days and not made of a composition of a mix of metal or plastic and whatever. And it makes recycling very tricky. And the average consumer don't know. Sometimes it's not clear to them where to send this stuff. So the RecycleMate, they have painstakingly collected and built a classification system about all these different items and where to put them, how to dispose of them. So this solves the problem of the low recycling rate, low recovery rate, and sometimes hazardous disposal. Batteries catch on fire, when they are crashed in garbage trucks. I'm sure you've seen that on the news. So councils are also struggling to track other companies' capabilities to collect different types of waste and effectively allocate resources, where to put the next recycling center for what type of waste. So we developed a tool for the councils to measure recycling accessibility based on population density, travel distance, how far people have to travel to get to a place where they can drop off batteries or chemicals, and different types of material. So I think eventually, maybe what we are already seeing improvement in recycling rates and reduced incidents of battery fire through the implementation of this tool, especially in Queensland. I think almost all the councils are using this to see, oh, there's a gap on the map. when there is ritual circles around collection centers, we changed how 5K, 3K, 1K. But when they see a gap on the map where there are 200 residents, they have to drive 5 kilometers to drop off some paint, means something needs to be done, because perhaps that's a distance that people are unwilling to do, and provides an opportunity for further investment. So this is one example where visualization, by putting data on a geospatial visualization, it makes it a real world measurable impact. And on the topic of environment and sustainability, we're currently working with the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority, so EPA, and we're providing a solution for them to track litter found on land and in water around the state. So counting litter and how many pieces of coffee cups may sound trivial, but there's a whole lot of science behind it, and it's actually quite complex. So ultimately, we're building a tool to allow the government to monitor on a very granular level very specific types of litter, such as tiny fragments of plastic or cigarette butts or even lollipop sticks that may end up in our waterways and on our beaches. So the scientists will go on field trips to collect and identify and count the different types of litter, and this information is entered into database, and we are building a visualization tool to help them visualize the trend of the density of these items at different locations and across time as well, and over many years. So hopefully, I think hoping to by examining these trends, it can expose some issues. Suddenly during the COVID years, there's a huge influx of disposable facial masks, and there were, because it was something new, that there was the government didn't know have an effective way to prevent it or reduce the amount of masks in the waterways, for example. The tool visualization in this case provides the evidence for the government to come up with new interventions, and as well as measure success of programs such as the plastic bag ban, which was implemented in the past few years. Yeah, so that's two recent examples that illustrates what we do and how data visualization have been helping in various ways in our society.
Thank you so much for sharing. Both those examples are so interesting and really, I guess, clear exemplars or showcases of before the decision maker wasn't able to make a decision without being able to have the data visualized. Because even if you had that data available in, say, a spreadsheet for someone to go through that, to look at trends, to even understand what that means, without the visualization, that wasn't possible, really. And I guess the first example, being able to show the gap, is so interesting. And then that's not it's not the end. It's like, okay, then that decision maker asks a question about the gap, or they do an intervention about that gap, or it also isn't the final decision. It's also a way to elicit discussion and get people to ask questions about what's happening in the space on that spatial level. So I imagine that first the Recyclemate one had just a map layer with then other layers on top of that then they were able to see where things were from a supply and demand perspective. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a way to see our role in making data useful is that we're tool builders. We help people diagnose and solve their problems, giving them the right tools to prod and to investigate. Analogies could be, we're giving them a jetpack to fly up really high to see the big picture on the ground, which they weren't able to do on the ground. and or give them the special lenses to remove noises so they can see the things that are really important to them, and giving them special dyes that when put in the solution they can see the reactions and see the connections between things that just pop up colorized. The analogy just goes on, but you get the picture, the outline where our role is. So I guess, so going back to the point, being tool makers, we are making digital tools for people to interrogate data that are fit for purpose, that are easy to use, and if we do it well enough, a pleasure to use. So technology becomes invisible. It becomes part of their natural workflows. It becomes seamless, so they can focus more on what they do best, or scientists, do science, rather than fighting with technology. So that's.
I love that. And I was thinking about when you were talking about the litter example, how potentially AI could help with identifying the litter in the first place, perhaps to make that even more streamlined. If you were able to then, people were already collecting it, able to have a database of what a lollipop stick looks like, what a cigarette butt looks like, etc., and then how you could, use AI to help you identify the types of litter that then would go into, the visualization. I was thinking more of that, the
it's data collection bit. It can be. The possibilities are endless. Use drones and computer vision, and they can, and if they go down that route, they can cover larger pieces of land, collecting, identify more samples, for example. This.
And I guess then, like you said, using those different tools, technology as those tools, allowing the scientists to do more science, and to uncover different things, to be more creative, to have more time to be able to be more creative and think and have ideas and explore different routes with the resources that we have is an important one as well. What I'm really interested, I know you've got lots of examples, and I want to go through more examples because I think they're brilliant. But I just want you to take us through, if you can, a little bit of your process when a client comes to you and says, "Hey, I've got this problem," or do they come with, "Hey, I've got a problem," or do they come with, "Hey, I've got some data," or, "Hey, someone told me I had to do this project. How can you help me?" What's your process when you are dealing with clients to get to that outcome?
So a typical project, a client will come to us and say, "We have this data, and we want to either communicate that to their customers, or showcase something, or build a tool to help them work better, solve a particular problem." I think the first step is for data visualization designers or any product designers just to sit down with them and really distill down the problem, and start with small steps, and break down this is a very large problem into different stages. If we start by solving the most critical ones, because I think reducing scope is key in any project. So we always ask them, who are you building this for? Is it for expert users, people who are domain experts, understand the topic really well? They don't need much hand-holding. They don't need much, but they do want to see the drill downs and the lots of different options, different ways from looking at the data from different perspectives. Or is this for more of a lay audience, the general public? Whereas our approach has to be different. Simplify the message, simplify the language, and design a more guided approach, step by step. Explain the context, the big picture, and then discuss each subtopic one at a time. So as a way to not overwhelm the audience. So we have to look at the data ourselves. So we don't blindly just accept, okay, here's a data dump, we'll just work with it. We actually open up the CSV files or connect to the databases and do some very quick analysis of what's the coverage of data, what are the data ranges, where the gaps are, and what types of data are in this data set. And once we understand the topic and the audience and the data fully, then we can proceed to doing some over lower fidelity prototypes. It could be in the format of a wireframe or something interactive. And we test the idea constantly with our client, because as consultants, we can get into something within a week, but they've been working on this for years. So there's always something that we don't know. So we have to respect that and test with them and gather feedback and iterate if we have the luxury of time and budget. And then slowly moving on to more higher fidelity visual designs and think about the use of color, motifs, and interactions. And after that, build and deploy and test. Again, lots of conversations with the client, making sure we're on the right track, we're solving the right problem. Is not something. The end product is not something that we think is the right solution. The opinion must come from the client. That's the typical process. I think, to sum it up, just going from simple pencil sketches to the final product it's a process. Going each step is you build up on the fidelity, on the complexity, and polish.
Iterate and continue to check back in. I was thinking, you're talking about some of the design, I guess, considerations that you make. So color, emotion, interactivity. How do you make some of those design decisions? Is there a typical process that you follow, or is it very much bespoke based on clients, audience, what you're trying to get out of it? What process do you go through when you're designing that kind of final product?
I think it comes back to our multidisciplinary nature. So we are designers, but we can also code and materialize the design into a functional product. I think being a designer is quite important. So be able to understand people's needs and pain points, and based on those observations and understandings, you make these design decisions. So every piece of data visualization we make, whether it's like a projection, like massive projection, or just a simple bar chart that gets embedded in a Word document, we treat it as a vehicle for storytelling. So visualization is a way to get the message across. So make design decisions many design decisions along the way. So we are packaging up metaphors and contextual information and narratives and data into something people can understand and care about, and hopefully they'll do something about too. So to try to evoke some action from them. So that's the, I think about approach that visualization as a designer it's our approach. I design first.
Yeah, I think like you outlined those steps there, and then I think the important one, they're all important, but the one at the end around somehow eliciting action, I think is really key. And I guess it will depend what action would that be. It would depend on, I guess, the project or the context. So, because maybe it's just raising awareness that you want someone to have another conversation about this data, or maybe you want them to click on something, or maybe you want them to donate, or I don't know, recycle. There's so many different actions, and talking about embedding that within the data visualization to create a story, I guess is really, is interesting in the sense of, rather than being a visualization to do a task, it's trying to do multiple things at the same time. Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's talk about examples. So you've shared a few examples already. Any other examples that you'd like to share, particularly if there was quite impactful examples that have left an impression on you, or ones that you've worked on? Over to you.
Well, yeah, just one example, like quite memorable. So not by us, it's by I think American data visualization studio called Periscopic. It's an old one. I think it's a brilliant example of how data can hit the audience emotionally. It's called U.S. gun deaths. So the way it shows life expectancy of each gun violence victim as a mark, and how they were cut short because of they were shot. So I think to me visually the ghost lines, the gap, the void in left represents the years that they didn't get to live. It's very haunting, and it's a very powerful metaphor too. I think what I really liked is how restrained the design is. There's no the message is front and center. It's just one piece of visualization, and that way, but not by not having clutter, it lets this central piece of visual tell the story for itself, and the pacing and the animation, the way it slowly unfolds as the time ticks. It gives the topic weight that people's lives being cut short in the way it deserves. And also, like one of the features is you are able to select make comparisons between cohorts, demographic or location. And the way they did it is that then the comparison is done by a mirror image of the two different groups. It's quite effective for revealing the disparities. One group compared to another. I think this is this was done quite a while ago. I think more than 10 years, but it still feels very relevant. As I think gun violence is still an unsolved social issue over there, and it still gives me the chills.
Yeah, that one's quite very powerful, and one, like you said, that it's quite minimalist in its design, but the effective use of animation and I guess eliciting that emotion is really pertinent. And yeah, it is one that people do bring up as being really impactful and that they remember. So yeah, it's a great example.
Yeah. And I can also talk about one of our own projects.
Yeah, I love that.
I think it's different in a way, very different to the Periscopic project. So we made the Census Explorer for SBS, the Special Broadcasting Service. And what's significant about this project is its longevity and how it evolved over the years. So we first started the project in 2011, so 3 censuses ago. So census is done every 5 years.
Is that the plural of census? No, I
have to look it up. Yeah, so it covers quite a bit of a big chunk of time, and the data set is quite large as well. In terms of the population it reports on. So I can confidently say the project's not only evolved technologically, so the tools we use to design and build the project has changed over the years. It mirrors how our career developed in the field, but also it reflects how the Australian society has changed over this period, over a decade. So in this project, through a series of charts and interactive maps, we are telling the story of Australian people, who we are, where we come from, what language we speak, and where we live. It has a wealth of information about the society over 3 censi, spanning over a decade. So to an audience, and we have to communicate this information back to an audience of 25.4 million people. And in the latest iteration, we have made this Census Explorer available in 8 different languages as well, to meet the need of the and the mandate of the SBS, serving community, a very diverse community who may speak languages other than English, to make this information available to all cross sections of society. So the explorer had to communicate this huge volume of data into concise and visually appealing representations, and modularized as well. So any piece, any section that you can take out from the explorer and embed in an article, and it will still make sense. It's self-contained, has enough contextual information. They're all standalone pieces, and together they work together as a whole and also as little modules. And like I said, the main point of the later is the one of the key features is which we localize or translate the interface and the content itself into different languages to serve the community, and the design is able to caters for people with various levels of data literacy as well. So you don't have to be someone who's has a university degree in data analytics to use this tool. Anyone can come in and learn about their own suburb, their own electorate, about people who speak who share heritage with them. And hopefully, when the next census data becomes available in 2 years' time, a year and a half time, we get to continue to iterate.
And with more questions asked in the census, which will be interesting to see that data, more specific gender data, orientation data, that type of thing will be super interesting to see. On the topic of census, I read that you did a project about chocolate and the census. That really looked really interesting. Can you share a little bit about that project?
Yeah, it's not a very typical project of ours. Most of our projects live on a screen and delivered by using pixels. So that was one of the projects we wanted to experiment with data physicalization. So I guess transform data into physical objects or artifacts that people can touch and smell and taste in this case. And it's another way to tell the story of the Australian society using something that's edible. That's using an edible medium. So there was a collaboration with a chocolate maker. So we went to the chocolate maker with his idea that how do we make information digestible? And chocolate was a chosen medium. And because working with physicalization, we're limited by there are obvious things that don't translate well from the screen to the physical world. We can't zoom and filtering and apply checkboxes option to suddenly slice the data in a different way. That's not really possible. So we settled on the idea of how about we distill the idea of diversity and place into, I think, 12 different chocolate flavors, and each piece of chocolate represents I think one of the top ancestries and the most representative suburb for that ancestry in Australia. So the data is visualized or physicalized in this into taste and into people's preconceptions about these ancestries. Let's say if it's about Vietnamese Australians, then the flavors are more aligned with cuisines from that region, and so on. Yeah, it was a very, like I said, very unusual project, but it did raise people's awareness about diversity in Australia and place, and as well as raise people's awareness about the census, why the importance of doing the census and knowing about yourself, so you can better know about yourself and your neighbors and the people around you and the nation as a whole as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. And yeah, I guess like unusual project, but a unique one that obviously stood out when I was reading it. And I'm a data person, but I guess making data really digestible is a really interesting concept. But then also it starts the conversation, right, with other people. But I think also the process that you would have had to go through to decide what the end product of the chocolate was going to be would have been also super interesting, about making decisions about, how is that going to be represented, and making those decisions would be similar to if you were, making a graph, but there were different elements that you had to choose from. Yeah, super interesting. Any other projects that you've worked on in the past? I read one about teachers and compliments to teachers and things like that, but any other ones that really stick out in your mind?
So there is a project we did for UNDP, so United Nations Development Program. It's during the COVID years. Like, we all have to erase that from our memory base now. It's quite a while ago. So it's during the pandemic. Things are happening around the world, bad things. So the UN stepped in and say, okay, there's so many data sources out there and so many different indicators that measure human well-being or how a country is doing. Let's make something that help the policymakers decide in this during this state of emergency around the world. How do we help them make better policies so that people are safer and the economy can bounce back as quickly as possible? So we made this data insight platform, socio-economic recovery data insight platform for them. It's mainly about pulling in more than between 100 to 200 different data sources and come up with something that can anticipate different needs of different countries and cater to what's important to them. They're all different, by the way, depending on the where this country is, how affected this country is affected by the pandemic. So they can mix the indicators and come up with their own index, and that reflects the focus that they all have.
What kind of data sets, for example, that would you be drawing in?
It could be from the Human Development Index. It could be workforce anticipation or the level of violence and conflict that present in the region. Like I said, the focus for example, in the United States will be vastly different to people in Pakistan or Congo. So this tool is for the policymakers to come here, look at the data that's relevant to them, and make the decisions that are best for their country.
And these decisions, would they be things like, I guess if we're talking about during the pandemic, what, rules or what policies, grants, funding, all of that kind of thing based on?
When to open up travel or what type of subsidies that they can provide to the population and which subset of population, for example.
Yeah, and I guess like from performance perspective, looking at what's happening and potentially looking at if they did make a change, how could that affect the future for them in their country? Yes.
So the tool, I don't think the tool can. There wasn't a feedback mechanism to measure the success of policies, but the tool is there to allow them to see to present the full catalog that what we know about in the countries in all these different measurements, so it allows them to, I guess, come up with policies that are that's more holistic.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. No, that's super interesting. And obviously a really global example, and how different data sets can then come together and create these visualizations to help decision makers make policy decisions. We're nearly out of time. I'm wondering whether we should go to challenges, which is a big topic, but challenges that you have come across when we are creating data visualizations and stories. What are kind of the main challenges that we have to overcome when we're doing this type of work?
I guess the nature of majority of our projects are targeted towards decision makers in government and industry, and the challenges we face are that often our audience are time poor, and they more focus on the administrative aspects of the operation rather than the technical. So our job becomes first represent the facts accurately, concisely, and provide. We have to figure out ways to provide sufficient amount of contextual information to help the interpretation of data, but not too much because it will, again, information overload. And the visualization tools. So the solutions we design have to function as a bridge between the raw data, columns and rows, millions of cells of data points. How do we make that useful and align that with the goals of the organization? So there are a few steps in between, but I think the challenge is how to make something that's very complex, overwhelming, and turn that into something that's persuasive, I guess, and obvious to our users, to our audiences, that yes, there is a connection between the data points and what they want to do.
Yeah. And do you see that, I guess, persuasion or is just being able to show insights that aren't able to be seen? Like, is that part of, I guess, being persuasive or influencing decision making? Just the showing of the information in a different way that's understandable to the decision maker?
Yes, that's what it. Yeah, I think that's what it is. But it's challenging because like it involves so many different skill sets, I guess. Like you have to know how to package everything up, choosing the right language, working with the organization's domain experts. That they may speak in lingos that the decision makers may not be familiar with. How do we bridge that gap? I think, and be very restrained in design as well, not jamming everything in. Perhaps that could come in a later phase, but first you have to build alliances and find out, get supporters in the organization by doing the easy wins first.
Yeah, so seeing, and correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but seeing that data visualization or story, I guess, as a way to translate between the people in the organization or the technical kind of the domain experts to the decision makers, making like it's nearly like a language in itself that then they can both understand and engage with.
Yeah, that it's something that both groups can bring up on the screen and point at and have a conversation about, rather than pointing to a particular column or cell in a spreadsheet. I think that visualization has it's much easier for people to sit in the room, have a conversation about the problems, the issues.
Yeah, that's a great insight to then think about data visualization as the piece in the middle. Do you think that storytelling is always involved when you're creating a visualization or vice versa? I haven't quite worked out my definition of both data visualization and storytelling as I'm kind of collecting all of this information. But the crossover, what do you see the crossover between the two is?
I think storytelling exists in in visualization, like this is part of it. I think any information we put out or visualize has to have a message in it, embedded. Otherwise, it's just a data point. It couldn't stand by itself. So the visualization has to either have the contextual information or have the narrative within or around it to make sense. I think that's essential.
Yeah, cool. That makes sense. I just have one last question, which is if you've got any suggestions for the listeners to use data visualization or storytelling in their own work or life.
So I guess with the advancement of AI-assisted tech, it's much easier now to make stuff. So my first advice is to perhaps move away from designing for a more generic average person and instead focus on the very specific groups that you can tailor your product to. So rather than building just one big solution for everything and forcing your audience to come to a single point of truth, everyone has to go through this. Maybe we can make many little things because it's much cheaper and much quicker to make things now. And it can take your audience down many different paths and different routes. So perhaps something we can try to do more. And don't be afraid of the rapidly growing technologies like AI. Make it work for you, like extend your capabilities with using it. Maybe don't rely on it, but make it use it to materialize the many ideas that's in your head. You can break the bottleneck, the capacity bottleneck as an individual and as an organization as well with AI.
That's awesome. I'm glad you talked about that because I was going to ask you about the changes, that you've seen over the last 15 years. And I think breaking the capacity bottleneck is a brilliant way to put the extension of AI. It's basically like bringing another limb that you can just do a lot more things and try out new things really quickly and work out what's working, what's not working. But I think adding that layer of that critical thinking, you still have to have the creativity, the ideas, how it's actually going to work, what the data means and what it doesn't mean. How, is the data quality, all those type of things are still very human elements that come into that process.
There's no shortage of ideas. Everyone has so many ideas, but time is a limited resource, and skill and experience is also that they don't come instantly. Perhaps by leveraging those tools, we can dedicate more of our time in acquiring those skills and experiences and experiment more.
Experiment more. Yeah, that's a great way to end this episode and end this interview. Thank you so much, Jack, for coming on to the podcast. I know there's a wealth of information on your website, so we can put the links in the show notes. And if people want to find you on LinkedIn, I'm sure they could do that as well. And thanks again for sharing your time with me. I know it's a precious resource, particularly at the moment for you. And thanks again for coming onto the podcast.
Pleasure. Thanks, Zoe.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Smart Community Podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode and all other episodes at zoeether.com/podcast. That's zoeeather.com/podcast. Have you got a question for me or one of our guests? We'd love to hear from you. Just shoot us an email at hello@mysmart.community. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you follow the podcast wherever you listen and connect with us on LinkedIn too. And hey, ratings and reviews are always welcome. They help more smart humans just like you find the show. As always, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it.